Welcome back to AM Northwest. Our next guest's debut book is a collection of beautifully written essays about her love story with her now husband and so much more. We welcome the author of The Way You Make Me Feel, Love in Black and Brown, Nina Sharma. How are you?
Good.
It is so beautifully written. So let's first, this is, like I said in the introduction, it's your debut book.
Yes.
What was your inspiration?
Yes, my inspiration, many, I would say. First of all, my muse, my husband.
Right.
And, but I've been a big fan of rom-coms for as long as I can remember. As long as I can remember, I've wanted to write some kind of love story and been charmed by, you know, the ones that I grew up with, Harry Met Sally and the lineage after any Nora Ephron, anything. You know, the master American rom-com writer, who's also, she's a great essayist. So since that point, I think I've always had it in my mind. And then meeting Quincy and our love story was one of those things that just ignited me to explore life writing through the lens of us.
Right.
Yeah.
And there he is, and this was you two on one of your anniversaries that I found on Instagram. So beautiful picture of you and Quincy. So your love story, that's the second chapter in the book about when you first met Quincy.
Yes.
Take me through that, because I don't know if it was love at first sight.
Yeah.
But it kind of felt like it the way you described it.
Absolutely. It was love at first sight. I always say that that title story has a couple things wrapped into it. One being a love story, the other being my mental health. And the story I like to tell is the fact that, I think we've talked about this a little bit just before, but this was the very last story I wrote in grad school. I went to grad school for writing.
And you teach writers?
And I teach writers
now. That's why
now.
It's so well written.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was the very last story because I think for most of grad school, I kind of avoided writing about my mental health. And finally in that last semester, I was ready. I think I had written enough that I was ready to take that dive. And I had been writing about my life for a long time, but I kind of avoided this big thing.
Right, and that was a big thing.
Yeah.
Because you were at Brown University.
Yes.
And your now husband Quincy went to Brown too, so that was your connection. But then you kind of fell apart and had to leave.
Yes, yeah, and that's kind of where the meet cute meets mental health, which is kind of the nexus of the book. So when I met him, I saw a Brown University sticker on the back of his car, and I felt like, frankly, to be honest, like lust when I saw him. I was like, oh, I want to talk to this guy.
Yes.
And but when I saw that Brown University sticker, I just thought, you know, it immediately triggered me thinking about my nervous breakdown, my mental health. And I just thought, I was so ashamed. I felt so much stigma at that point that I thought it immediately canceled me out from pursuing him. I immediately, you know, at that point, I was so, you know, shy and reticent about my mental health that I couldn't even talk about it to myself, let alone someone else.
Right.
But I always say lust won out.
Right.
Lust, you know, this moment of being like really curious and interested in this guy almost did force me to break this silence.
Right, but you've also, speaking of your love story, you also wrote about it so eloquently, and I want to read a little bit, but to set it up, you guys were at a party, and you guys sat down and you were talking about how you're attracted to Norm from Cheers, and then he made a comment like, oh, you have kind of a strange sense of humor, and you looked him straight in the eye and said, I know what I like.
I know what I like.
And you had like this magical connection, like something you'd see in a Hallmark movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh my gosh. And then after he described some more, and then this is what the chapter ends with, or this essay ends with. He said, he didn't plan to say this. I could sense, just as much as I didn't plan my hard eye contact, it was as if another part of him was speaking to another part of me, some daring part, picking up some signal only God and those radio antenna could know. And that, I loved that.
Thank you.
That it just like hit me, because it's like you guys were meant to be together.
Yeah. Oh, you know, that I'm so appreciate you bringing that part up. I think it was one of those moments that it kind of like, sometimes writing just kind of shoots out of you without you trying. I almost say like the best writing is like when you get out of your own way. Kind of like the same line in that book, like in spite of yourself, like it's a lot like falling in love. Like some part of you has to get out of your own way sometimes, and I think some of that happened in writing this title story. But something about that particular scene, you know, I knew I was onto something. When I think about the American rom-com, I think about how Black and brown characters are often the side characters. They're like the helpful sidekick. Or I think about, you know, or like the, you know, quirky friend. And I knew, you know, Quincy are none of those things in our story. And I wanted to write something that centered Black and brown love. And as I wrote this story, this was like, you know, this is the title story of the book. It's, you know, our meet cute. I knew I was onto something and exploring love from the margins, love in Black and brown, and kind of more broadly through us. This is an Afro-Asian love story in particular. I wanted to think about, through our coming together, broadly Afro-Asian solidarity, what that is, what that looks like, and Asian and African American history, how they come together more broadly through our love first and foremost.
We barely touched the surface because there's so much about your family, your heritage, and even racism, and that you and Quincy tackle together. But we want to tell everybody you have a book event tonight at Powell City of Books. It's tonight at 7. It's on 10th and West Burnside. Come see Nina. She'll be reading excerpts from your book. Is that what you do at the Powell's events?
Absolutely.
Okay, and we will have a link to more information on our website at katu.com. The book again is The Way You Make Me Feel. Nina Sharma, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We will be right back with more AM Northwest. Stay right there. Good job. We barely